So it's quite late, so that let's try to be effective. So that we are going to talk again about blockchain and especially what are the challenges you face with blockchain. And I was actually thinking that we have talked so much about ICOs and all these things that maybe we could little bit focus more on all other things what can be done with blockchain. So that what is really the value of blockchain as such. And just little bit background, actually we are working especially with fintech technologies, so that we have seen that that there are a lot of technology opportunities, and it is sometimes very hard to see that what are actual business applications or what will be the actual model, how something will be important. But at the same time, I believe that certain technologies will be anyway very important. So that if we think, for example, blockchain, I have a few points here that especially what I see is happening with it is that it is a kind of development that you don't need a kind of big black boxes, like, for example, banks used to be, or many other organizations, so that you can create much more distributed models. Then, of course, data is coming very important. And it's not only that all companies try to collect your data, but what is also interesting, how consumers and customers could manage their own data and basically utilize that in different services. So that how it could also distribute the power and control of the services so that there are not only few parties that basically control everything. And of course, I think that a couple of important things is also that what are the actual business models, how to utilize blockchain, any other models than, for example, currencies or ICOs. Then I think that one important question is also that what is exactly blockchain and where it can be useful and where it is not useful. I think that blockchain is now used for many kind of purposes, or let's say that people talk about that for many kind of purposes and they don't always even know what they are talking about. I think that one good example is that I have heard that people in banks are talking how they are going to replace their existing databases with blockchain. I don't believe that it is happening very soon, or at least it is not exactly the blockchain as we have today. It's something that can be developed based on the blockchain concept. So that this is very briefly some background. And I actually would like to give now opportunity for you to basically introduce yourself, but also basically very briefly tell that how you see that where blockchain is really useful and where it is not useful or it is not realistic. Maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. My name's Dave Randal. I'm the resident scholar and executive director with the American Research and Policy Institute based here in Washington, and I'm an academic researcher, and my principal area of expertise and what I've written about and a whole host of peer-reviewed journal articles focus on health information technology as well as healthcare entitlement systems, principally, obviously, in the U.S. So, and full disclosure, I'm also senior policy advisor for self-care, and my colleague Pardeep Goyal presented earlier. So I wrote a paper a few months ago with Pardeep that we published in the Journal of Health and Medical Informatics, where we outline the use cases for health information technology using blockchain technology. And we gave 3 very distinct use cases, and since then we've come up with literally probably about 100 more. So I think that given the nature of health IT architecture, current uses and the failures that I think are very well documented within the healthcare landscape, blockchain, I think, really is a solution for well-documented problems. I could spend hours talking about it, but first and foremost, I think that there are many use cases, as an example, in the U.S. Medicaid system, within electronic health records, as well as benefits administration and care coordination, as I think Pradeep has already laid out in his presentation on what SolveCare is all about. So I think that, I think we've certainly made the business and use case for our technology applications, but I know that there are a whole host of other industries that are represented here that I think that there are equally as many use cases for utilizing blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, and it's really a great event. And my name is Xiaochen, and I'm president of FinTech for Good, and also the founder of Blockchain Frontier Group. And so from after I left World Bank till now, that we have built a number of blockchain labs, and including insurance blockchain lab, smart city blockchain lab, and digital identity lab, and agriculture blockchain lab, and also the healthcare blockchain lab. So when you ask whether these are the real cases, yes. If we don't think this will just generate new or transform the existing business models, and also bring cost reduction, and improve the transparency, and reduce the risk to the system, and then we will not really put so much efforts into this. And for each labs, we have a really great number of big organizations and universities who are working with us. So which means that no matter from the academic side or from the industry side, and the serious people, serious organizations are jumping into that. And then we also have a fund, a blockchain investment fund. And then the first question that we ask the startups who just gave us the deal is that do you really need blockchain for this solution or not? So if this can be done by other solutions, then we will not look at you. We'll not incubate you. We'll not just put our money in you. So which means that there are cases which, for example, if there are a lot of transactions involved, and then middlemen are involved, then the costs are really high, and the blockchain can just play a big role. One example is in the carbon market or carbon trading. If from project origination to issue of carbon credits, it can be like 14 months in length, and also the costs are extremely high. Then using blockchain, you can just reduce all the validation, certification, verification process, and the cost of can drop by 60%. And then from 14 months, it can just reduce to 4 months. So this kind of the things we are really looking at. In addition to this, and I can just talk a lot about other use cases, but I think that maybe later that we can just jump into the cases. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and actually, Mihaela, a kind of additional question to you, because I know that you are expert of this. That when basically we talk that blockchain is solution for everything easily, that I think that we must be also specific. What is blockchain today? What is exactly what we have today? And what is a kind of, could I say, concept or philosophy behind blockchain? And what is the actual software implementation? And because I think that sometimes it is good to divide these two different things.
Well, yes, and thank you very much. There's a lot of questions there, but when I was thinking about your question with what is blockchain, to address this audience, everybody knows what it is. I would like to cite Don Tapscott, who actually about 5-6 years ago, we were at Stanford on a panel, and he said, well, internet enabled exchange of value, the blockchain enables the internet enabled exchange of information, the blockchain enables exchange of value. So how about calling it the worldwide ledger? So now we have all this capacity to exchange value. But, just to, if I may address some of my previous speakers as well in the generic answer. And I'd like to refer to the applications of blockchain in healthcare. Pradeep threw the glove to us saying that I'm not going to put medical data on blockchain. So speaking of exchange of value and what we shouldn't do with blockchain, I'd like to say that, now with anonymization of records, such data would bring a lot of value. And speaking of exchange of value for clinical trials in the first place. Second, for the patient, we can track treatments and we can really go down to the root of why a patient died, for example. So there are a lot of advantages for actually using blockchain, and I think many times the blockchain is being dismissed because of that. And one last thing which I'd like to point to is that the challenges in implementing blockchain in the industry and in companies which didn't have it traditionally are not only related to what's the topic of our conference today, like the regulation. They are related a lot also to other factors, such as the ecosystem building. We need everybody to be in a logistics company. Everybody has to get on blockchain in order to adopt it. That's a huge challenge. And the second one is human resources, because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs in those big companies because of the blockchain. But of course, I can elaborate more on this later. So why not to use it? Maybe because of the HR reasons, but I don't think that's a good enough reason.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you. I know we stand between you and wine and beer, so hopefully we'll give you some good insight. I'm Meagan Metzger. I am the CEO and founder of an IT accelerator, and we focus squarely on finding emerging technologies that can impact the federal government. So we are actually in the middle of running a fintech and blockchain program as we speak right now. So some of the applications in government are tremendous. It ranges from, how do we track better payment information, whether that's welfare distribution. Think about the millions of fraudulent payments the government makes when it comes to taxpayer and things of the like. Healthcare is huge in the government, so we mentioned CMS. But you also have things like digital identities and everything that all the information the government has around who you are and the passports that they issue versus the traveler system versus your state driver's license. There's a lot of information that would benefit from a blockchain itself. Of course, we have smart contracts. We can talk about procurement all day long. But really, one of the things that I find extremely interesting is just the need to share information inside the government. So who here has worked with the government or knows the government is the government? Great. We're not far from every possible agency around here. But sharing information even in between agencies is a very difficult task right now. And a lot of it centers around the need to know mentality that is inside the government. So if I am with the Customs and Border Patrol and I need to talk to ICE or other agencies inside DHS, what information needs to actually be shared? And how do we do that without having to stand up massive data lakes and create all these APIs and integrations, and then who actually owns the program itself that's going to manage that? So I think there's some interesting applications that we can dive into. The challenges are going to be immense. Cultural is going to be one of the big ones, I think. We're moving people's rice bowl, so to speak, or people's cheese, whichever saying you like to take on. And then also just how do you leverage blockchain with the antiquated technologies that a lot of agencies have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vays. I was the previous speaker. I'll make it simple. Just if you Google me, you'll find everything you need to know. Always wanted to say that, so it's great. I get to say it now. I'm going to be the contrarian, as I always am, and I'm going to go a completely opposite direction with this. For me, it's very, very simple. I'm actually going to read a line of code in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, or actually in the code itself, the first time the word was used. And here it is. Nodes collect new transactions into a block, hash them into a hash tree, and scan through none's value to make the block's hash satisfy proof of work requirements. When they solve the proof of work, they broadcast the block to everyone else, and the block is added to the blockchain. In the beginning, I hear that like the original copies of his work, he called it a time chain. The word was completely unimportant to him. It was just randomly in there. What was important to him was proof of work. That was the innovation. The 2009 innovation was proof of work. It was a way to send a digital message so that there's no middleman. That's the difference. Never before, it was an unsolvable problem in computer science. How do you send a picture? How do you send a document? How do you send any digital message and have it be final? Have it be immutable? And he came the closest. And now what we have is we have something that on the internet, the proof of work function, that allows us to send messages of value, and it's being used as money, which is the most logical application. Will there be another application? We don't know. Nobody knows. Okay, right now it's functioning very well as censorship-resistant, unconfiscatable value transfer, if used properly. Because if it's used improperly, you will lose all that value, or worse, get arrested. Okay, and to me, that's what a blockchain is. It's this property. It's this property specific to the internet. So whenever people talk about using this property as a blockchain for anything else, the first thing I tell them is, do you want to permanently delete the deed to your house or send it to your neighbor? If the answer is no, then you don't need a blockchain. Same thing for medical records. Same thing pretty much for everything else. One final note is this method of decentralization is very inefficient technologically, and it needs to be done in certain cases of censorship, like file transfer is very successful in a decentralized peer-to-peer model. So is Bitcoin for value transfer, plus some of its imitators. But no one is censoring your contracts. So I'm all for smart contracts. They're great. I would love self-executing contracts. But the only reason to decentralize them, as in what Ethereum is trying to do, is to prevent censorship. And now we can talk about what contracts are actually being censored by the government, but I don't think this is the conversation we want to have on camera. So if your contract isn't being censored, I think decentralizing it is grossly inefficient. And the same thing for Ripple. There is nothing that Ripple can do that Swift can't. Why add an unnecessary token? It's just numbers in a database. So when most people talk about blockchains, they just need, new database developers, a little more up to date. That's it. No decentralization involved.
Okay, thank you. I personally still feel that it's not so clear for many people, maybe not even here, at least not for me, what people always mean when they talk about blockchain. Because I definitely, for example, this definition of the blockchain, it is a kind of concept. And at the same time, people are talking about blockchain like or as a technology or certain software solution. And I think that at least my understanding is that the concept as such can be utilized in many areas, but at the same time, for example, the existing software solutions are not always yet powerful enough or effective enough for different kind of applications. Do you agree or disagree?
I would certainly agree with that statement, and I think maybe to a degree to refute what Tone said, I think that specifically in healthcare, looking at your classical definition from the originator of the blockchain, that one core application, at least in healthcare, that we're exploring is fraud mitigation. So in essence, proof of work. So I've personally developed with some of my co-authors predictive models specifically looking at fraud detection and mitigation. That, I think, could be a core application on a blockchain in terms of embedding those predictive algorithms with any payment system to, in essence, to do proof of work, to stop fraud in its tracks. As I think my colleague Pradeep said earlier, that the basic fraud detection system in any healthcare system around the world is pay and chase. Within the blockchain, utilizing the blockchain, in essence, developing that proof of work and using predictive algorithms, you can stop fraud immediately.
What do you mean by proof of work? I'm lost there. Like, I know what proof of work is in Bitcoin. It's a bunch of miners solving math problems.
Any payment system now, it's you submit your reimbursement and basically it's paid. There's no check or balance in terms of whether or not that work should have been performed or if it was performed to excess. By using a predictive algorithm, using a scoring mechanism such as the one I've helped to develop, you can embed that within a blockchain to force that payment system or mechanism to be implemented immediately.
But what? Who do you not trust in that model? Like, who are you trying to? Again, you're trying to decentralize something. I'm not sure what you're trying to decentralize because I'm not sure which trusted party you don't trust that you need to eliminate.
In short, many providers who engage in potential fraud.
Like insurance companies.
Well, healthcare providers, most notably, or even insurers.
Okay, so the person, again, I will have to take this offline. I don't understand why you need a blockchain still. I'm sorry, I don't get it.
Because the centralized system, in essence, has failed.
But that's a regulatory problem, right? I mean, that's not a technological problem.
Again, offline discussion.
But actually, I think that the good point is the link to regulation. There are opinions sometimes that something that is based on blockchain is impossible to regulate. At the same time, there are, of course, also opinions that actually blockchain can open totally new ways how to make the regulation, how to manage the data, and basically then the whole RegTech area is coming very active. So that what kind of comments you have for the regulation versus blockchain? Is it opportunity or is it totally impossible combination?
Yeah, and I want to connect this with the ICO again, and because in September that I was organizing this China Token Economy Week, and I brought around 10, or I was about to bring around 10 companies from different parts of the world to China to do roadshow. And then we have sadly September 4th, had the central bank said this no, that ICO is illegal, and I have to cancel the show. And so this actually is, from then I asked my intern to draft this paper that, the state of ICO. And then we just look at, 10 countries which blockchain is really important or have been just showing emerging trend. And then they are really just, at a different level. At early adopter or as really trying to understand, or some are more advanced. So for different understanding, then they actually coming up with a different regulatory framework in that. And again, when for ICO that now I'm chairing an ICO self-regulating regulation group in China, and then this group is also interacting with the international self-regulation group. And the idea, basically, why do we do this? And because blockchain and ISO and all this distributed ledger technology is at early stage, meaning that it's like this now. That when you ask the challenge is that people don't understand it. And also, there are not data to show that what are the risks. And if you implement, install the system, and also there are not many, huge experts who can just, come here to tell you everything about, blockchain or the solution associated with it. So that's why, if we, as helping the regulators to understand how this is an instrument, and there's not bad instrument. There's only being misused instrument.
And not only that, if I may, well, because we have the government here, the regulators in the room, I have to say that the transparency and this immutability of that the blockchain is enabling is actually making a lot of regulation work obsolete, because now you can have that already. Everybody can see that you haven't done something wrong. And of course, if you have done something wrong, you can automatically be made accountable by a smart contract. So it's a lot that can be, become thinner in terms of regulations.
Yeah, I
if
give
I
you
may.
example on that. When I was just giving a speech in China, and some like a village head came to me and they say that we want to install a blockchain solution. I said, why? You are in a village, you're underdeveloped and all that. Then they told me that because we disseminated a lot of government grant subsidies. We didn't do any corruption, but we cannot prove we didn't do anything.
Yes.
Everyone just said that there's something behind the thing. We cannot prove it. So then the idea for them is, can we just have a system to just claim that we didn't do something we didn't do? This is actually when again come back to that what blockchain is, what can blockchain do. One thing is blockchain really can help us to tell who we, you are yourself, you did what you do, and that is, the whole digital identity side of the thing. And
tied to this, I'd like to have my taxes on smart contracts, just to know at every step what can be done. I don't know if you're contemplating that.
Have you any other opinions?
Well, no, actually, that's like one of the applications I actually do like. Like, for example, have the government only collect taxes through the blockchain. But to me, there will only be one blockchain, the way we only have one internet. There will be lots of companies that utilize. Now, I'm expecting that to be the Bitcoin blockchain. It doesn't have to be the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, I am betting on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's the only token that I own. So my money is on that one. Now, can there be a better one? Possibly. But what we have to realize is the proof of work function that secures the Bitcoin blockchain or any other blockchain, if it's proof of work. If it's not proof of work, it's not a blockchain to me. I don't know what it is. It's not innovative, in my opinion. So it has to be proof of work. Proof of work is just these computers solving random math problems, using electricity. I mean, I use the word wasting. They're actually performing a very good function. And they're all competing for the same electricity. So it makes no sense to have multiple blockchains because you're going to mine the most profitable one. One is always going to be more secure. So people are going to be utilizing the most secure blockchain because if the Bitcoin blockchain fails, then every single transaction that has taken place on a Bitcoin network for the last 7 years, every one of those transactions fail. Confidence in everything related to value on any blockchain will probably die. It will probably go to zero. So I do think Bitcoin is the one and only shot at having that blockchain. But going back to the specific question about, wait, can you just repeat that real quick? I got off on a little tangent. But
We're running a little bit out of time.
yeah.
Yeah. I have actually one final question to all of you,
Yeah.
and if you can keep it very short, so that if we ignore ICOs and cryptocurrencies, what do you think is the most important area to utilize blockchain? And then vice versa, where you see that blockchain is not something that it should be used for a certain purpose, or there is misunderstanding that it is valid for that kind of application.
So two of them for me, eliminating fraud and streamlining processes. And just to address what you mentioned about the blockchain in healthcare, there's so much fraud done in clinical trials. It's an enormous number. And it's simply because in many clinical trials, the results are being tweaked. So they actually fit the experiments after the proposal is submitted. And I don't want to go more into this. But
maybe you can continue.
I'm really interested in the application of blockchain to the supply chain, especially, when I think about, of course, I'm coming from a government perspective, but I think it's applicable across all industries. But I want to know that every part on that tank that the U.S. is sending out to war was made by who claimed made that part. And especially now with the convergence of hardware and software, we need to make sure that the computer systems that are sitting on a lot of our, manufactured goods aren't, didn't have interference and kind of adversaries come into the process. So that's one area that I'm extremely interested. I'm going to slightly disagree on the single blockchain because I don't think businesses, just like we have SIPRNet and NIPRNet. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the internet for like the CIA and things like that. Oversimplification there, but not everyone's going to be able to subscribe to a one singular public blockchain.
Well, but those are centralized. Those are private, right? There'll be like thousands of private blockchains. This is why those examples are the equivalent to a private blockchain.
Yeah, for me.
Ask a question. May I ask? How much government? I went to your website. The government is involved. And by the way, I go to a lot of these conferences about blockchain, and the supply chain is the big thing. Everybody talks about it. Nobody talks about the blockchain. But how much government is involved with the blockchain? Because that's how you're. Tell us about that.
Meaning how many agencies are actually starting to?
Exactly.
Quite a few. So they range. You'll see all sorts. It's not just DoD. So obviously there's a big DoD contingency that is starting to invest in blockchain. We actually have HHS and and FDA looking at almost from a supply chain perspective on how do you follow the kind of the manufacturing and administration of drugs. Personnel management, looking at it to how do you, rather than token as a currency, token as an individual that's moving and transferring around the government because their employee records do not follow them right now. We spend billions of dollars every year redoing the same thing around security clearances and things like that because information doesn't change. So the number's growing. We have some pilots. There's going to be a big divide, I think, between the people that are thinking about the problem and is blockchain the right solution, and the agencies that want to say, look how how innovative I am. I use blockchain, and it's not actually a blockchain problem, to your point. And we'll have both.
All right, I'll try to make it quick. I don't see that. I don't see blockchain solving that problem at all. Blockchain will show you whatever you put into it. So if you put into it that the parts of this tank were made here, that's how it's going to be. It doesn't mean that they were actually built there. Like, it's still a regulatory problem. The blockchain will only show you what you have put in there, and you won't be able to change it afterwards. That's correct, but it doesn't solve what you actually put in there. Again, for me, the application is this censorship-resistant value transfer, which is really, really important, and people seem to kind of ignore it. What I don't like the way, everyone's just using the word blockchain as a synonym for database, but one of the reasons why I really enjoy this and why I left Wall Street is because, hey, it's great to have non-government printed money, and everything I've seen from that point on, and I'm stealing this line from a friend, is everyone around me is just printing their own money or a security. It's not really a solution. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Okay, thank you.
No, but let me ask a question, last one. You've been with Go, we see you're chairman of the board. How can people get in touch with you? People home, people over here, how can they go?
I have my contact details here.
It's over there, great. And doctor?
No, the great panel. I certainly agree with you that the real promise of the blockchain, at least in my belief in the healthcare industry, is the improvement of existing processes and obviously fraud detection and mitigation.
Is China is going to go back to the ICOs?
I think so. And two things. One, first to address your question, and the U.S. government have this GSA has the intergovernment initiative on blockchain, and the State Department also are offering that to do diplomacy and development. And as of use case, I think digital identity is really critical, and which can really just generate a lot of new solutions. And after China, of course, that that has some political implication as of now, and the government is actually really actively working with the community or with the blockchain community to look at different options for ICO, that how to regulate. And there will be something new coming soon.
You said that your background, you work with the World Bank. So
that's right,
that's what you came from, the World Bank, and you're now a private entrepreneur.
And I totally agree also that digital identity can be
So
very important.
The World Bank, IMF, they all have reports about blockchain.
Yeah, World Bank also have blockchain lab.
Okay,
Yeah.
Doctor, final word?
Yes. Convergence, blockchain, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. I think this is huge, and it's going to be huge. And to your point, the bill of lading, yes, whatever you put on the blockchain, but the point is that it cannot be modified, so you can really now track it down, and everything what is happening can be tracked
Good,
down.
that's for another discussion. So why
And it's a reception.
don't start him, sir. Meagan,
So we're doing
he's
final.
got all the answers. Yes, final word, please.
No, I think there's tremendous promise. There's going to be challenges, and we can banter for a very long time about it. But reach out if you're in
Yeah.
government, interested in government. You can find me at. We actually changed our website, but my name's Meagan Metzger, and it's at decode.co.
Yeah.
So DCODE.co.
So your accelerators and 1776s, are you
No,
accelerated?
no, we sit across the street. So we run virtual. So all of our companies come from across the world actually right now. So
What is the website?
DCOD.co.
I've been at wonderful. Find out what.
I should be good, but okay. No, but I can make a Google spreadsheet. I can make a Google spreadsheet that nobody else can modify, and everybody can see all the data. And the moment anyone modifies anything on that sheet, there is a timestamp that I don't know who can call Google's customer service to get that changed, but I'm pretty sure it's almost impossible. It's probably more immutable. But if you do put something in the blockchain, most of the time you want that changed. You don't want it changed because when it's not changed, this is how people will delete their deeds and their medical records. So if you want something in uneditable, that means you are taking full responsibility for everything that goes into it, and you can't modify it. If you want it modified, then you don't want the blockchain.
Done that, thank you.
Yeah,
very much, sir.
thank you.
Randal,
Thank you.